to talk today, and I guess we're going to learn how people are so sloppy when they travel, and why are they so sloppy, and how can we make sure we aren't as sloppy when we travel. So the first impression is so important, Dr. Gilda, right?
The first impression of everything is so important. Here's the equation for everybody. You have 3 seconds to hook your audience and 5 seconds to hold your audience. After 5 seconds, they're out the door. You know how our attention spans are like that of a windshield wiper. Boop, 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 boop. I'm out. I couldn't care less. So you've got to really grab them. 3 seconds to grab them. Now understand what 3 seconds is. Hi, I'm Dr. Gilda Carle. That's my 3 seconds. That's not enough, but that's my hook. So if I'm saying sloppy travelers, that's very simple. Sloppy travelers, that's only 2 seconds. And then we have to give you meat. That's 5 seconds. 5 seconds. After 5 seconds, they're going to turn off. Whether you're doing a book, a blog, a television show, a podcast, it doesn't make a difference. The attention spans of people have gone lower and lower and lower. People are telling me that, oh, I just fall asleep reading a book. Isn't your book on audio tape? And Neil is trying to get that underway as soon as possible, I
Yeah.
hope. But we're trying to give my audience what they want. But it's very important that we make that impression immediately up front. So this is what happened recently. Sean Duffy just made an announcement to say, hey, everybody, you look like a sloppy mess walking around. You are coming to the airport in pajamas and shoes that are slippers, sometimes with socks, sometimes without socks. And what does this do to the psychology? I mean, this is really simple. What this does is when you're a sloppy mess, you act sloppy. Your
Hmm.
behaviors are disgusting. And there is so much rife on so many of these airlines, so many flights. People go off the wall, they're pent up in emotions. Some people are drinking and they're not in control of their emotions. And if they're wearing pajamas, then they're really relaxed to
Yep.
go a little nuts. Understand, the armrest is not for your foot back there to put onto somebody else's armrest. Understand that if you smell, that everybody around you is going to smell that. Understand that you can sit quietly and comfortably and be left alone, but if you are neat and clean and looking decently, you are sending a message and making an impression. Now, let me tell you what happened. I was on a plane going to Canada at one point. I was about to do a presentation for one of my clients, and that was just at the border of New York State and Canada. So I was on this plane and I'm writing. I'm doing my writing on the computer. The guy next to me was watching my writing. All of a sudden, he peers onto my screen and said, what is dialogue? I said, excuse me? I didn't even know somebody was watching me. I said, excuse me? So we started talking, and I told him what I was doing, and blah, 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 blah. After, now this, I didn't know him from Adam. He told me he owned a diaper manufacturer in Montreal. He was a manufacturer, oh, wait a minute. Let me get that straight. He told me he owned a diaper manufacturing company. He was the president of diaper. I said, oh, well, I don't need diapers at this point in my life, and I don't have babies who need diapers. So I figured, this guy and I can't do business. I don't know anything about diapers, and he doesn't understand what I'm talking about. Anyway, but since we knew each other from being seatmates, and the flight was all about an hour and a half from New York to Montreal, it wasn't that long. And maybe it was 2 hours. 2.5 hours. I don't remember, but it was pretty short. And as a result, we exchanged cards. Nice to
Yeah.
meet you. And I
Mhm.
walked off.
Okay.
Every time I sent out a newsletter, in those days, I was writing newsletters to all my business clients. And every time I had another newsletter, sent one up to him in Canada. This went on for years and years and years. I don't think I heard from him. Maybe he called me once just to say hi, Merry Christmas, Happy Thanksgiving, whatever. 5 years later, 5 years of him receiving all of my newsletters. I get a phone call. Hello, this is so and so, who is the sales manager for such and such a company. You met the president of our company 5 years ago on a flight. He was
Mhm.
so impressed with you. He would like you to come and speak to our international sales people's conference at a Swiss chalet in Montreal. I hadn't heard from him really. We had never done this 5 years. So I said, wow, that's really amazing. So he needed a speaker. He chose me. That's 5 years earlier that we had met. Had I been
Mm.
dressed like a sloppy mess in pajamas, this guy would never have spoken to me. The point is to all of it, and I did a bang up job. They sent me a lot of money and a first class ticket, and I ran up there and I did my presentation. It was great. But please understand, you can't prepare for this. The only thing you can prepare is making yourself look employable, attractive, and desirable for somebody to find out more about you and give you an opportunity to provide a service for them. But I guarantee if you're in slippers and pajamas, that person will never look at you. Now, you could say, well, I'm not in the market to see this and this. How do you know what you're in the market for? This is the point. You don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. You don't know what opportunities there are. When I started my career, I was all of 20 years old and I started teaching in the South Bronx. That was a pretty raunchy place to be. And there was this one guy who was teaching also. We were all so young and innocent. And then all of a sudden, the United Federation of Teachers called a teacher strike, and everybody was out. Well, this young guy who had started when I started to drive a cab in order to make some money. In the back seat of his taxi was some guy who owned a picture frame company. And he and the guy just conversed, had a good time, blah, blah, blah. Next thing you know, the guy called him and said, how would you like to come to work for me? The teacher said, yeah, sure. Bottom line, he became the executive vice president within a few years of that company. Was he looking for a job? No. Did he need to earn an income? Yes. Did he do whatever was available to him, like taxi driving? Yes. And look what happened with him. So I am saying dress right because you don't know what God has planned for you tomorrow. And
Right.
that's my message.
And that's so true. You never know. And you never know who you're going to meet that's going to end up becoming something amazing. And you might write that person off. And then you're kicking yourself someday to say, why did I think that way?
Why did I think that way? Why am I wearing blinders and not allowing the universe to take over with new and exciting opportunities that are all around us when we think about it? Don't do that
100%.
to yourself. Don't, it's what you're doing to yourself. You're annihilating your prospects. Why would you do that?
You're
So
missing out on everything.
Sean Duffy is right. If you look like a slob, you'll be looked upon like a slob. Nobody's going to offer you anything. But if you look like a slob and you want to stay it, looking like a slob and being employed like a slob, God bless you. But how about dressing nicer and seeing what that can bring? Happened to me, and it can happen to you.
All right. That was a special simulcast of the Neil Haley Show and the GildaGram Podcast. Go to drgilda.com